expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup, win anywhere. SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.
For the Aussie Gridiron Network, welcome in to the NFL SuperCoach Halfa podcast. We've managed 12 weeks of the season. This is our 17th episode. We are so thankful for all that you've done to stick with us. It has been a weird ride, and this week is another weird ride. Of course, you'd usually see us out on Thursday. Things have been a little more difficult this week, and weirdly, while Taylor and I are both here this week, it is not together, and we've kind of stitched it together, so you'll never know. And in fact, to prove it, here's Taylor now.
Matty C and Supercoaches, Week 11 has ended and we are back for Week 12. After Henderson's third touchdown, I couldn't stop touching myself. Let's go!
So there you go. You've heard from him. You'll hear from me. First step, let's talk about the free stuff. The winner of the SuperCoach Halfa Podcast League through the SuperCoach app. Our code there is 962235, so you can find our league. Come and join it. We have 320 super coaches in there vying for the prize, and you could be one as well. The top place at the end of the season is going to win a custom NFL jersey of any player of your choosing, maybe a Shedeur Sanders, depending on how he goes this week. He'll come up a little bit later in the show. But, mate, it is great to get into that, because if you do win, you get something cool. You'll also bag a little bit of Aussie Gridiron Network swag from our merch store. But also on that too, go and check out the merch store, linktree/Aussie Gridiron Network, and you can check out the swag. You might also find something that you like, or nice place to find a little gift or two as well for the festive season. But check that out, the SuperCoach Halfa Podcast League through the SuperCoach app. Our code is 962235, free to join, and you might just win something. Here's the leader of our league. This is great. We've got 5 guys in the top 5 now who at different times through the season have been in the top 5 before. And check out some of their achievements here, right? Our number 1 this week just went and threw up a 620-point week. Unbelievable. Currently 31st in SuperCoach overall. His name is Jesse, and he is on fire. He's got 5,755 points on the year, averaging over 520 points per week. And he is on top. Jesse, Shooters Tour. A absolute fantastic reference there. We love the reference to Happy Gilmore. Second place, and this is a guy who's beating me up in a couple of different styles of fantasy, actually. Penix in Your Butt Car is run by Tom, and he scored 575 points in SuperCoach last week. Scores 5,753 on the year, which is only 2 points behind Jesse, and is only 1 place behind Jesse in overall SuperCoach as the 32nd in all of SuperCoach. Incredible. These two, you throw a blanket over them, and we've seen Tom has been on top before. He was first place going to last week. 95 meters is the name of third place. Josh, who's been fantastic this year as well. You've been in for quite some time in this top 5. Another 575 point performance from him last week. 5,747 points on the year, which is only 6 points less than Tom, for goodness sake. Again, averaging over 520 a week. If I score 520 a week, I feel freaking sensational for that 1 week. But these guys are averaging that. And he's 35th overall in SuperCoach. So that's 3 guys there inside the top 30 in all of SuperCoach who are in our league and have had a fantastic year. In 4th place, and you throw a blanket, they're so close, these top 4, 566 points in week 11 for $1 Billion Saints. It's Jason's team. He has 5,738 SuperCoach points, again averaging over 520 points, and is currently 40th in all of SuperCoach. There is a 17-point spread between 1st place and 4th place. That is so close, you can barely pick him. And then in 5th place is Slappers, which is Alistair's team. Now, Alistair last week goes and throws up a 569-point week, which is really great. He's got 5,700 points, which is also just sensational, and is only 55 points behind 1st place as well. So super close, and averaging just a peck under 520 points a week, 71st overall in all of SuperCoach. That's our top 5. Go get them, lads. And we've seen some great names come and go through that list, and I imagine we're going to see some cycling through in that list on the way home. But we've got so many weeks still to go, and the winner's going to win that custom NFL jersey, plus a little bit of Aussie Gridiron Network swag, so go and check it out.
And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster.
Our most traded. I love this segment. We've got our most traded out, followed by our most traded in, and then I'll have a quick talk about some of the trades in isolation that have been the most common. The most traded players out. I'm going to lump these two together straight out of the gate, right? They're for different reasons, but Jamar Chase has been traded out by 1,000 super coaches. His value's 19 million, and he's lost you about 4 million on the year, but his break even this week would have been 66. And he's now on a 1 week bye, I'm calling it. He's been suspended for the week, and he's got a 0 projection. So he's a lot of money to sit on your bench and not score any points. For the same reason, Drake London is also someone who people are selling. 837 super coaches have said, nah, mate, 21 million bucks is too much to sit on my bench. He's earned you 5.5 this year. His break even was 42 and his projection was 39, but there's a massive likelihood he's not playing. And even though it shows he's going to sustain his value, it is difficult to have 21 million bucks not scoring any points. So while they're different players and for different reasons, I understand that there is a motivation to get both of them out because of the same outcome. So that's 100% understood. There's between them 40 million bucks of player right there that you really can't afford to be shedding 20 million bucks and just sitting on your bench unless it's a player like, we're going to have a fellow like McCaffrey on buy in 2 weeks. I'd understand that, but here at this point of the year, these are folks who you're really expecting to just be in your lineup and you don't have to think about them since they've had their buys weeks ago. 654 super coaches have made the move to punt Ashton Jeanty. He has made you 8.7 million bucks this year, so you can't complain. He's at 13 million bucks, but he's plateaued, and I think you've probably squeezed as much as you're going to get out of that lemon for the time being, because the last couple of weeks he had a week where he had 7 carries for 6 yards, and he did have some catches, but no end zone, and again no end zone this week. He's got a break even of 32, but his projection's 22, and I don't even have confidence he can really give that a massive shake. He's had a tough sled of it lately, and Ashton Jeanty has made you the money. Time to move on. Jackson Dart has been dropped by 651 super coaches, 21.5 million bucks. He's made you 17 million bucks, and even though he's got a projection of 50 and a break even of 9, I do not mind this drop at all, because I think there is a great opportunity to open up cash. Even though he's still going to make you cash by the look of that, with that low break even and that high projection, I'm really comfortable with seeing him to the wayside. I don't mind that Detroit are probably going to kick the crap out of the Giants this week, and he'll end up doing a lot of running around. He and JJ McCarthy, who's the 5th most traded out and the 2nd most traded out quarterback, are kind of, to me, both for similar outcomes but in different ways. Jackson Dart presents you a great opportunity with a couple of million bucks saved somewhere else to go up to a guy like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, one of those guys you think will finish the season. But JJ McCarthy presents you the other opportunity to go down. He has made you $7.5 million, and he's the gateway to go and use that $7.5 million to upgrade somewhere else, while you go back to a player like Shedeur Sanders, who is going to be on the field, has fuck all break even, cost you almost nothing, and is guaranteed to make you some money, because at the end of this week he'll have played 2 weeks, and the following week he'll start to trend. And what I like about that too is that Dylan Gabriel hasn't exactly set the world on fire. So is there a whole heap of impetus to take Shedeur Sanders out in a game where we're expecting them to get boat raced anyway, but also that, they're just not a great team and they're not really going anywhere, and this will give them the opportunity to decide whether it's Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders who they need to hang on to longer term. So JJ McCarthy out, I don't mind that for a cheaper quarterback, but Jackson Dart out, and I don't mind if it's for a more expensive quarterback. I think those two, you've got what you needed out of them, and they've got that in common, but I also think that you are getting rid of them for completely different reasons. The number 6 most traded out player is Javonte Williams. Now, I had this guy from the start of the year, and he's been an excellent player to hold for if you've had him the whole year, because he's earned you $6 million, and he's been fine, been really fine. But now the maths is starting to just go a little bit spare. Projection of 24 and a break even of 47, and he is just not getting the same action he was earlier in the year. And, the Dallas offense has been far less consistent. They're not a very good football team, and earlier in the year, at least, they were scoring a butt ton of points, and they're just not going to play the Raiders every week. It's the big problem now. They went and scored a ton of points against the Raiders, but their run home isn't just the Raiders every week. So I'm pretty comfortable with the drop here. At $15 million, he does offer you a gateway to a couple of other players, but it's difficult because, for him to be a way that you trade up, you're going to need to get a return from somebody else. So if it is like McCarthy and Williams going out, then you need to be doing something that will also bring you into a spot where you can bring in somebody like Jonathan Taylor or one of these big boys who's going to finish the season high. Rome Odunze is the 7th most traded out with 321. Supercoach is making this move. $12.2 million has just kind of made him an awkward price, right? This is the kind of guy who would have said, don't even draft this guy because you are in this awkward price to start with. And then when you start looking at his break-evens and projections, it's like, he's kind of a lettuce sandwich, right? He's got 18 points of projection and 20 points of break-even. So he's not making you more money now, even though he's made you 4.2 over the year. And just those darling days of early in the season where he had some boom games just don't seem to be there anymore. So, like, the thing about the lettuce sandwiches, does that sound enticing? No. Is it food? Yeah. Like, so you can eat it and say you ate something, but what's it doing for you? And I kind of feel like Roma Dunze is kind of that at the moment, so I understand the move. He's kind of stagnated and plateaued. Last one on this list is Josh Jacobs. He has been started by 320 super coaches this week in trades. He's $18 million that people are getting out of. And I like that because over the course of the year, he's only made a very minimal movement, and you're kind of hoping for a guy like this that he certainly wouldn't lose your money. He's done that. He's only lost $500,000, and at 18 million, that's pretty negligible. But his maths is starting to get hard too. Like, he may be a little injured coming to this week, so his usage might be down. 57's his break even. His projection's 24. It's hard to upkeep that maths with $18 million at this time of the year, and things seem to be kind of running away from the Packers a little bit. Like, they're in games, but he's just not been the player that he was earlier in the year, and it might take a little while to get that trust back in him, especially while he's a little bit injured. So that's the 8 guys who are out, and some of these guys are really going to feature a lot in the most popular isolated trades of the week in a minute. So here's your traded in, guys. George Pickens, 964 super coaches making that move at $16.6 million. I know why. He's already earned you $5.5 million, and with a break even of 19 and a projection 27, you're saying, well, this guy's still got room to make me more money and score me points. Double. We like that. Josh Allen's the next most popular in at 748, and this is the top quarterback in move. He's at $27 million, and he's barely moved over the course of the year. Only lost you $500,000, and at 28 as the buy-in, that's negligible. His maths is really good too. 18-point break even and 47-point projection is exactly what you're looking for. A chance to still make you some money. Problem is, he's already played, so we're putting this to air a little bit late, and the Thursday night game has already gone. He only scored you 20. So it's not what you were hoping for, but you know what? He's not going to lose your money, and every quarterback can have one bad week. You're expecting from here he should be pretty good. That Houston Texans line, just anytime it was a passing play, he could not get rid of the ball in time. That defensive line was just all over him like a rash. So just a tough week for Josh Allen, and you'd like to think that there aren't more of those going. Josh Allen, the kind of guy you want to have in your end-of-season team. Puka Nacua is coming in next at 622 trades in, $17.75 million. He's been very stable this year. He's only shed about $100K. His maths is a little tricky, though. The break-even's 45 and the projection is 27. You'd like that to be the other way around. But what I think this is a statement of showing that you care about Puka as a keeper for the whole year. It's not about this week, and rightly, because we talk about this in the SuperCoach for other sports, like Aussie Rules or Rugby League, where players have just enough base stats to continue to earn you a good floor of points, and Puka Nacua is that. He also has a bit of a ceiling, but he's not going to be the guy who goes out and gets you 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. But what he will do is consistently get you a bunch of catches, a bunch of yards, and he will probably score you a touchdown, maybe half the time. And the touchdown's icing because he's so good at the just continued points thing. And here's a spot that once you get him in there, you can just set and forget. And I like that. At this point here, you're getting him at pretty much what you would have spent on opening day. So you haven't even lost anything. It's not like he's gone and made a whole bunch of money and you're chasing your ass. Jonathan Taylor represents exactly the things that Puka isn't, though. He's got 560 super coaches trading him in, and he's the most expensive player in all of Supercoach, right? $29 million. He's $9.3 million higher than he was at the start of the season, and that to me makes this a tough move because yeah, he's scoring a lot of points, but now you have to score those points all the time for him to not lose value. And this is great. This week his break-even's 47, his projection's 56, so all that's pointing in the right direction. But the tricky bit about it is that that's got to point in the same direction every week, otherwise you're kind of in a hole, right? Jonathan Taylor has a couple of bad weeks. His value plummets. If you ever wanted to get out of him, then you've lost money on him. It's a difficult move to make now. It's almost like if you didn't get in on him, that now's really not the time. It's difficult to explain, but I had that move, the sliding doors moment earlier in the year where I had Puka Nacua, I had that earlier in the year. I had sliding doors moment where I could move in James Cook or Jonathan Taylor, and I chose James Cook, and I've sort of lived to wish that I could have done it differently. But, you miss. And this is kind of one of those moves where I've got egg on my face from it and, you learn from it. But the guys who got Jonathan Taylor in are laughing. Probably now that Jonathan Taylor has kind of hit a peak and I don't know that he can continue to grow. So it's going to be tough, really, really tough to be a Jonathan Taylor owner if you're going to buy him in at almost $10 million more than he cost at the start of the year and he plateaus because he has got a tougher run on the way home than he's had on the way out so far. And that schedule gets pretty ugly. So they'll be glad they've got all the wins they already have. But, mate, they won't miss the playoffs from here in the NFL world. But it does make it tougher because they're not as guaranteed to win as many of the games on the way home now as they were in the start of the season. The next guy in is Travion Henderson, and I love him completely differently to Jonathan Taylor. This guy scored you some points. He went through up a 58-point week last week, and you love that. But at $14.4 million, he's kind of the same money as, we were talking about selling Javonte earlier. Well, that's a sideways move into Travion Henderson, who's made you $8.3 million since the opening day, and his break-even's negative 47. That is a lot of sitting on your ass and still making money. That's a long way backwards to go, and his projection's 29. So that's an almost 80-point swing, having 30 points of projection plus almost negative 50 worth of break-even. It's going to make you money. He's going to be on the field and scoring some points too. He's a perfect running back to throw in if you've got a guy who's hurt or a guy on bye. And my goodness, we've got 4 teams on bye this week, so there's plenty of opportunity for him to be somebody who you might be starting as well. And mate, I love the move in, and there's plenty of reasons why you'd be moving him in. The sixth most moved in guy is Shador Sanders. 528 Supercoaches making this move to the $3.7 million base opening price guy. He will start this week. He may even play again next week, depending on how Dylan Gabriel goes. But also, Dylan Gabriel hasn't really set the world on fire either. So maybe this will be something where Shador gets a couple of goes. And it means that then, at least after 2 games, you know that the next time you see him on a field, he's going to have the opportunity to make you some money. What even better is that already, even if you just moved out of someone like McCarthy, then he's going to free you up about $8 million, which you don't mind. That's the way that you make a move up to some of these guys like Jonathan Taylor, who's getting moved in, is any move which includes shifting out a middling quarterback who's kind of been your backup plan into a bargain basement guy. The last guys in this list are the same but different, right? George Kittle is $14.6 million, and he's shed about $1 million since his opening day price. But get this, right? His break-even is -2, and his projection's 23. So is he going to make up that $1 million? Yeah, tomorrow. He'll make up the $1 million as soon as this week's games are over. The thing I like about it, though, is that with Purdy back, and Taylor's going to talk about this in a little bit, so I won't dwell on it a lot, but there's a change in the air for players at San Francisco, and I'm going to let Taylor describe why that is, but to me that makes this a good move in, and Trey McBride is the next player on this list and the 8th guy moved in, and he's been traded in by about the same amount of Supercoaches, so a bit over 500, and at $18.6 million, he's only earned you 4.3 because he started pretty high. But again, his break-even is 8 and his projection's 40, and the Jags can't stop tight ends, especially good tight ends. Bauer scored 3 touchdowns on them 3 weeks ago. So you know that the middle of the field is free and that the projection of 40 points there seems really good. But what I think you do here is because you probably have Tyler Warren and or Brock Bowers. Ideally, you would have both, and then you're moving one of these guys in and not both, right? You probably want to have 2 of these 3 between Bowers, Kittle, and McBride, and you probably want to have had Tyler Warren from the outset because he's also been handy. But I just kind of think, it's a little pointless at this stage investing in having all 3 of the big names. Like, if you started with Warren, you've hung on to Warren this whole time, that's great because he's still just free money. He's been earning you. But if you're now paying for some of these guys, then you're all of a sudden now not in the risk of these guys making you the money that Warren had. And to me, it's just kind of a bit of a redundant move. So to me, I think your move here is that if you've still got Warren in it, or you've got a lower price mid-tier guy like, I don't know, a Loveland, someone who could make you some money still, then you want to have some version of Bowers, Kittle, and McBride. 2 of those 3, but not 3 of those 3. Now, some of these guys we've talked about in the most popular trades, and I won't spend a heap of time on this, but George Pickens and Puka Nakua have been some of the sexy names that you bring in when you drop a guy like Jamar Chase or Drake London. The ones that we haven't talked about that people are making moves on, I kind of like this, is that people have used the Jamar Chase thing as a way to get into Jackson Smith and Jigba, if you weren't in on that, and I like that. But also the Drake London one is a way to get into Rashie Rice, and I like that people are doing that. It's a really cool move. We haven't talked about Jackson Smith and Jigba or Rashie Rice at all today, and it's a great opportunity to talk about them because I just think they're really cool moves. The other big important moves are the ones which brought Josh Allen in this week, and there's been plenty of people who've done that. Weirdly, though, I've seen people do it for Jackson Dart, which is fine, but almost as many people have been doing it and sacrificing Mahomes, and I'm just not sure that that's worthwhile, right? And the other one that I've seen a few people doing it for as well, about half as many as the Mahomes move, is doing it for Lamar Jackson. Punting Lamar Jackson to bring in Josh Allen, or punting Patrick Mahomes to bring in Josh Allen, to me kind of seems a little silly. Like, you kind of want these guys between Mahomes and Jackson. I think you want one of them, right? Both these teams are 5-5. Both these teams will need this guy to cape up if they're going to make the playoffs, because like they're playing playoffs now. They can't afford to take any backward steps now if they are going to make it into the finals at the end of the year. And you know that there's going to be a game or two that will drop between here and there. So essentially, they are almost in straight knockout right now. And these guys will be doing things that will earn fantasy points. So I don't love the idea of dropping a Josh Allen. So I don't love the idea of picking up a Josh Allen at the expense of one of those guys. Dart, yes. The Giants have got nothing to play for, and he's just out there making money. Fine, I get that. He's made you a shit ton of money, and you can just go and make that move. But the Mahomes one, I don't get it. The Lamar Jackson one, I don't get it. I think if you owned either of those guys, you would want to keep them. I don't think Josh Allen is that important. And then again, you know, like we've seen him play this week and only threw up 20 points, so it's easy to be down on Josh Allen. But it's not even that. It is just the crux of the move to me just kind of seems a little anti what we're trying to do here. The last guy on the list here was, as we mentioned, people making moves which include Jonathan Taylor coming in, where Javonte Williams is the guy going out. I endorse that move.
And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge kids faster.
Well, we're going to dive into the mailbag now, and this is the bit that Taylor loves to do. I'm just going to make way for the big guy. Here you go, mate.
All right, first question comes in from Anonymous, and this anonymous person has actually given us two questions, so I'll start with the first one. Wouldn't mind going Lamar to May and target his good schedule. Thoughts? Well, I'm assuming this is a Lamar to May the way that he's written it and not a May to Lamar. So I guess I'll kind of answer both sides of it. So in terms of targeting his good schedule, I sort of broke this down. And the thing is, both of these guys have great schedules. So it's kind of hard to drop one of these guys for the other. I've broken it down. So May, I've done it the same way that I did a couple of weeks ago, where I've just basically done what's a great matchup and what's, I guess, a middling matchup and what's a terrible one. May has 5 great matchups, 1 middling matchup, and a bye. So I guess you could put the bye, obviously, in the terrible matchup because you're not going to be able to play him. So basically that's 5 out of 7 great matchups for May. Lamar, however, has 6 great matchups and 1 middling matchup. So he's passed his bye, and he's actually got 1 better matchup and I guess 1 extra game over May. So definitely don't be trading Lamar to May, especially not for that reason, because Lamar's got as good, if not better, matchups than May going forward. So look, I've got no problem if you want to go the pod route of May over, like, say, Josh Allen. I personally wouldn't do it. I just think Josh Allen's a must to the run home. But if you're looking for a pod route, I wouldn't be trading Lamar out to him because, you know, you've already got him. And if you're a Lamar and Josh Allen owner, honestly, just ride that out and find different avenues otherwise. But look, this isn't an anti-May thing because I think he's definitely got the best matchup possible this week against the Bengals. So if it's a 1-week play, maybe, but I think Lamar could go off against the Jets anyway. So I wouldn't be doing that. The next question is, will Travion start now that Stevenson is back? And I guess the third part, would you start him over Monongai? So I think I don't know Vrabel personally, but I'm a Titans fan, unfortunately, and I do know what Vrabel's like, and I do think that Stevenson will come back to a pretty significant role. I do think I do think Travion has actually done a lot to prove that he deserves at least a split. So I don't see Henderson, even though he's done so well, having like probably more than 60% of the role. I just think he likes Ramondre. He likes what he does. He loves his pass pro. Like, he loves that he's a veteran. So I do imagine that it's going to be a split backfield. Now, the question about Monongai, I would start either Travion or Stevenson over Monongai this week. DeAndre Swift's healthy in front of him. We just got word that he's definitely playing this week. And plus, the matchup is so unbelievable for both Travion and Ramondre. They play the Bengals, who just absolutely get torched by running backs and get torched by basically anywhere. They're an equal opportunity horrendous defense. So, yeah, I would be starting either Travion or Stevenson, but I assume, given the the start percentages or the percentages that are in teams, I think this would be a question more about whether you'd be starting Travion over Monongai, and that would be the case for me. Next question is from David Muscat. How many trades is good for final round carnage? Look, I sort of touched on this last week. With the way our teams are set up, I don't think we need an absurd amount of trades, but you make a good point here in the question that I think holding some for carnage is a very, very good thing. I've got 6, and I'm going to talk about my trades at the end, but I'm contemplating either doing 2 or none and just holding again, because like you, I'm very happy with my starting lineup, but I'm thinking that the only way you might find a different pod route around everyone else is just by holding trades. And if there is carnage at the end of the year, you are going to have one over the people that might be above you in the rankings that sort of spent their trades willy-nilly at this point that they didn't need to. So I'm looking at that possibly, but at the same time, there is an upgrade I really want to make. But I would say right now, if you've got, I guess, between 7 or 8 trades, I think you're in a pretty good spot, especially with the way that our teams are set up. So I'd probably, for those last sort of 3 weeks, I'd probably be wanting to sit around, 3 to 4 trades just in case people go down. All right. Next one is from Kate Upton. So, cause you got sick of my questions last week, I'll ask the same one. Best pod options for the run home in wide receiver and running back. Shout out, Kate. I brought it up last week. My phone completely shit itself and I couldn't actually see the questions from the Gibberers group. So, apologise to you, mate. But I'll answer that question this week. So, I've written 3 down for each position. So, I'm going to actually touch on this at the end, but I really like one certain team moving forward, not so much just because of their offense, but because of how bad their defense is. I really like Juan Jennings. He's at 0.7%, and Ricky Pearsall on the same team at 1.8%. I really like the targeting the Niners, and I'll get into that later, but I really, really like their run home, and just because their defense has been so decimated, I think they're actually going to leak points on the other side, which is basically fantasy gold. So those two being healthy and being in the receiving call with Purdy back, I think they could be in for a very good finish. The last one I've actually written down as a super cheap option, and it's probably more for people looking to downgrade guys and not necessarily wanting enough. I put down Luther Burden at 1.1%. He's only at $4 or so million. So he's an option for people that don't want enough but still want to obviously maximize their money that they're downgrading. I really like Luther Burden's role moving forward. I've kind of touched on Colston Loveland already, but they've obviously used high draft capital to take Luther Burden and Colston Loveland into their team. And I'm already seeing that he's starting to get more and more snaps each week, Luther Burden. He's sort of taking over that slot role and that wide receiver 3 role from Zacchaeus. So I think this could be a pretty good finish to him. I'm not guaranteeing that he sort of breaks out yet. It could take till next year or the year after, but I just think it's worth a shot if you're sort of downgrading someone to maximize money. I'm not saying putting him in your starting team, but I think he could be one that is handy, and then if there is carnage at the end of the year and he's starting to break out, he's an absolute steal. Or if he starts to break out, you could even use another trade to get him out and make even more money. So that's one for there. Running back, I've written down Rico Dowdle at 2.6% is super interesting. He's just been so good since he's taken over the starting role. And yeah, at such a low ownership around that 17 mil mark. I even had a question on the side of my messenger group, someone looking to upgrade Genty. And honestly, these first 2 guys were the first things I thought of, people I thought of, because he only had about 6 million to upgrade him, so it had to be someone under 20 mil. And my first thoughts were Rico Dowdle and Kyron Williams, who I've also got written down at 3.2%. He's just such a touchdown machine, and this Rams team is just such a well-oiled machine that I think they're going to be in the red zone a lot. Yes, Kyron's missed out on some opportunities because Devontae Adams has been amazing in the red zone for them, but Kyron at any moment could break out for 3, maybe 4 touchdowns in a game because this Rams offense is always going to be up there. And the last one was a bit of a sneaky one. I didn't want to just bring up obvious guys. It's someone to keep an eye on, so it's probably not for this week, but at 5.64 million, I'd keep an eye on Trey Benson at the Arizona Cardinals because no one's really stepped in his absence and sort of just locked in that running back one role. It looks to me like he's probably only a week or 2 away coming off IR, so I think he could be someone that you could downgrade, one of these guys that you're not starting and you've made money on, down to him. And again, kind of like I've mentioned with Luther Burden, but probably to an even bigger degree, I think he could be a pretty decent pod for the run home. And he's also someone that you can make a lot of money off. So 0.9%, he was just one that I thought people should keep an eye on. Next one is Shane from the Gibberers group. Do you think guys like Chase London are sells at this point for possibly guys like Tucker Collins? With limited trades left, are we better to save and go for higher targets like QBs, or just save for injuries or restings, which could be coming over the final weeks? Look, I guess within that question, I probably broke it down. I don't think you should be selling Chase. It's 1 week, and it looks to me like he's getting Joe Burrow back, so I definitely wouldn't be selling Jamar Chase. It's 1 week. We've got coverage in our wide receiver cause, so don't go selling Jamar Chase. London's a completely different story. He's out injured. We don't even know if he'll come back, and even if he does, he's got Kirk Cousins throwing to him instead of Michael Penix, and he's had that amazing connection with Penix, so we don't even know what it looks like with Kirk Cousins. And the fact is, his price is so insanely inflated. Like, I had another question where I was talking to someone about who he would sell London to, and I looked at CeeDee Lamb and I was like, that's an easy shift over to CeeDee Lamb because he didn't have him, and basically gained him like $5.5 million in the process, and I just could not believe that. So London's price is so far up there that you can cash him in for almost anyone. And I mean, obviously, if you've got and don't have guys like Puka and Amon-Ra and stuff like that they're the better targets. But yeah, I just think London's a sell, Chase isn't. Tucker and Collins, I'm not so sure about. I don't know where the sudden Collins love comes from. It's Davis Mills still. We don't even really know exactly how far away Stroud is. And honestly, even when Stroud's back, they had a weird connection going this year, Nico. I love the talent. I love the player, but I don't know. I understand it's a different route that everyone else is going. Everyone's looking for pod routes, but in terms of this specific question, I'm not trading out guys like Chase to him just to go a different route, because I just think Chase is such a better chance of being a guy that you wish you owned at the end of the year, because he could go absolutely bananas. The limited trades left, will be better to save. I kind of sort of touched on that before. I guess it just depends how desperate you are to have starters. Like my only reason I would trade is because I was, say, upgrading to a really top end quarterback. Like, I'm still running Daniel Jones as my quarterback too. So my thought process is that I'm happy to use a couple of trades to get Jones up to Lamar. But honestly, if I already had Lamar and Josh and I was pretty happy with my starters, I don't think I'd be forcing a trade unless I already had to. If I already had an injured like Drake London that I had to get out. So I would be in survival mode at the moment, because I know how much money everyone's made and how good everyone's starting lineups. Like, I've already talked about how hard running back is at the moment. It feels like we've all got amazing running backs even on our bench, and it's hard to do start sits. So I wouldn't be forcing trades now, because like you've already mentioned, there could be carnage later. Yeah, so I would probably hold if you can, trade if you absolutely have to, or if you're, like I just mentioned, if you're really wanting to upgrade to that quarterback, because I've just mentioned how good the run is for Lamar, I would use a trade for that. But outside of that, if your team's fine starting, I would hold trades. You've also mentioned about the 3 pod targets and things. I'll probably just leave it at what I just mentioned in Cade's question, but obviously keep asking questions like that, because pods and things to try and get get us up the rankings moving forward are very important. Next one from Reese Christensen, bench 1. Jonathan Taylor, CMC, Gibbs, Bijan, and Cook. I just mentioned this about how everyone's got ridiculously hard running back start sits at the moment. I actually started, as you could probably tell in the start of this episode, but I started Henderson over both Saquon and Derrick Henry last week, and I was very, very happy. So it's funny how hard some of these start sits are at the moment. With this one, I think just because of the matchup, I think I'd be not starting Cook. And again, that could come back to bite me in the ass because we know how good Cook's ceiling is. But against the Texans, the matchup isn't great. They're 9th against running backs in fantasy. I just think Taylor and CMC and Gibbs are just must starts. Bijan's probably, if I had to order it, I'd have Bijan at the bottom of those 4, mainly because of the Kirk Cousins situation. We just don't know what to expect. So he would be the lowest of those 4, but I would probably still start him in front of Cook just because of the not great matchup on the ground for the Bills. I wanted to sort of just touch on something super quick, and I actually brought it up on our regular fantasy show, and I kind of touched on it in the pod segment just then when I had a question about pod wide receivers, and it was actually about the San Francisco 49ers, and I've kind of coined this phrase at the moment that I'm calling them the rainbow strip team. For anyone that, played Mario Kart back in the day and you hit the rainbow and you basically shot off, I'm thinking that could be the case for this 49ers offense in fantasy for the rest of the season. What I did was at the start of the year, I kind of coined the Dallas Cowboys as that team this year. And what I'm basically talking about is I'm looking for teams that have pretty decent offenses but have really bad defenses. So in fantasy game scripts, and especially in NFL, it means everything. And if your defense is giving up points and giving up points quick, it actually helps your offense in fantasy so much because you're having to keep up and you're constantly throwing and you're constantly having to score points during the game to win. So I just think there's Niners teams in that situation moving forward. Their defense is absolutely decimated, yet their offense is actually starting to get a lot of their pieces back. We've talked about it's been Mac Jones for most of the year, Brock Purdy, even though Mac Jones has been a very good backup. I just think Brock Purdy is an upgrade for this offense, and it just gives it a bit more stability. And it's amazing for guys like George Kittle, for, like I said, Warren Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. I just think this offense, like CMC, is amazing either way. So this isn't really a CMC take, but I guess you could also say that it makes CMC a better captaincy choice moving forward if you're looking sort of a different route outside of just the quarterbacks. But I didn't get a chance to touch on the trade-ins and trade-outs just the way that me and Matty have done this week, but I think that George Kittle is an amazing target in the tight end position. I would actually be going him if I didn't have him or Trey McBride. Because Kittle's $4 million less, I would actually be targeting Kittle over him. I know he's going to be less owned as well, so that obviously helps the whole pod situation moving forward. And I just think that Purdy has such an amazing connection with Kittle. You've already seen it first game back. I would be definitely targeting him. And I would say that I think Kittle and McBride is actually the best pairing moving forward, but I've been a proponent of not dropping Tyler Warren for anyone, so I'm fine if you either run a Kittle Warren or a McBride Warren, honestly. But again, targeting these Niners players on offense, I think is going to be fruitful for the rest of the year. So it's just something that I've kind of kept an eye on and just something for people to have a look at. You don't have to go diving in. Look, it's going to be hard to bring in Purdy and SuperCoach because we're trying to go top end at quarterback. I know going for lower price wide receivers at this point of the year is obviously a little bit tough as well, but I just wanted to point that out to people just in case they were looking for a different direction and something not as obvious than obviously we're looking at in other scenarios. So yeah, I'm just coining the Niners, the rainbow strip team, and if anyone wants to jump on, and whether they're even just in SuperCoach or even just in regular fantasy, if you guys are playing NFL, maybe a trade deadline, have a look at some of these guys and throw out some offers. So I just thought I'd put my 2 cents in there. But yeah, I love targeting teams that their defense is just getting decimated. So yeah, I'm looking at all the Niners, offensive players at the moment.
And now SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster.
All right, last of all, my trades for this week. I've sort of touched on it a little bit already that I'm contemplating either using none or trying to use two to sort of upgrade Daniel Jones to Lamar. So if I'm making a trade, that will be my first one. I need a little bit of money to facilitate that trade though. And I will say that Lamar to me still isn't a must get now. Like if you're just looking at this from a money sense, he's got a 70 odd break even. So he doesn't need to be brought in now. I'm just kind of looking at points and just trying to sort of chase a bit of rank. And I just think that this is the moment. I just think I've kind of waited out a couple of weeks. I mentioned that he had two middling matchups and then it kind of all opened up for him now. So I'm following my own advice on that. And yes, the break even can be waited on. So anyone out there, if they're looking at that and they're fine with their quarterbacks at the moment, he is not a must get now. I'm just looking at it for my team for the points sake of it. And even though he might still drop a little bit more cash, I just think he's dropped enough cash already in the last 2 weeks that this is the moment against the Jets. So yeah, I am looking to make that Daniel Jones to him upgrade, and especially because I'm not sold on Danny Dimes in Kansas City this week. I think it could be a little bit of tough sledding for them. I think this is the kind of game where the Chiefs are going to, flop out that dick and really flex it on some of these other teams, especially a team that's leading the AFC. So, to facilitate that, this is one that I'm still kind of questioning myself. I would have loved to have moved a Dunze to either of those wide receivers from the Niners that I mentioned in my Rainbow Strip segment. I just missed out on Jennings. It was like by about 200K. And then Pearsall was a little bit more expensive. So I couldn't actually make that trade to either of those guys and then get Lamar. So it's going to have to be, I've got two routes here. I'm either looking at Michael Wilson because of his extremely low break even and the fact he's got yet another game without Marvin Harrison there. So there's a chance not only that he'll be a good play this week, but he'll make a lot of money. My only issue is I do think it's going to be very short term because I think as soon as Marv comes back, he could then all of a sudden hemorrhage that money back down. So I don't know if it's the kind of play that you want to make long term because you're kind of going to need to sort of get that money and use it straight away and have to basically use another trade to downgrade him. My other route is what I've brought up with Luther Burden, and it's honestly what I am considering because I basically end up with another $4 million in my bank, and then I'm not having to really worry about that position moving forward because he's so lowly priced. I can just leave him there as my wide receiver 6. Hopefully he breaks out. If he doesn't, it's fine. It's not a huge concern to me because it's almost like having enough there. I know he plays, so it's frustrating if you're needing an AE or something like that, but I just think I'd rather someone there that I think has potential to sort of break out moving forward, just in an emergency at the end of the year if I'm running low on trades and I don't want to have to use one, at least he's playable. So yeah, they're the trade options I'm looking at for this week.
Yeah, we haven't got to talk about Taylor's trades. I'm going to talk about mine, right? And I've alluded to a little bit of this because I've been living in the McCarthy world for a while, and he's got maybe $7 million, and I thought this is the week to move him out because I'm destined to move Lamar Jackson in. Now, McCarthy himself doesn't get it done, but what I'd also done last week is I dragged Flacco in as a bit of a bridge between almost having enough money to bring in Lamar Jackson last week and then actually getting to do it this week. So it's McCarthy and it's Flacco going out, but the third lump, the one that just helps me free up a little bit of cash to try and make sure I've got enough to do that and enough to really save myself from myself is Justin Jefferson, because I have been an apologizer for this guy this year, and I'm going to have egg on my face now if I drop him and all of a sudden he turns it around. But at $12.7 million, he's less than $1 million more expensive than Emeka Ibuka. So I could free up $1 million by doing that, and I feel like Ibuka, it's been just as good. Fine, no worries. I can lower my expectations a little bit and know that points are points, and I'm not going to feel bad that I spent $17 million on it. I can feel good I spent $12 million on it. The way that moves then is that I can drop Davis Mills down, which is fine. McCarthy out for Mills in on my bench. That's another $2 million in the kitty. And then that buys me that $3 million jump that I need from Flacco to Lamar Jackson. So they're my moves this week, and that's why they're making sense. All these guys that I've now picked up, the only moves that I would want to make from here with the 4 trades I'm going to have left is to do something like move from Davis Mills to enough, or move from my whoever is going to be my ongoing kicker for the rest of the year, probably Tyler Loop, to just enough kicker, or, that's all I'm going to do is then my last moves will be, how do I maximize the most out of my starting lineup and leave myself with maybe at wide receiver and running back one guy who's really worthwhile to come off the bench in a pinch if I need an injury cover or a suspension, as we found out this week from Jamar Chase, and then just nuff everybody else and just put in the cheapest guy. I don't even care if they see the field or not, because it's not about trying to make money off them now. It's just about trying to make sure that I'm maximizing my starting lineup. So that's why I've done what I've done. We got to the end. It's been a weird one because Tay and I have been here, but we've been here at different times. The NFL SuperCoach Halfa, though, is brought to you by the Aussie Gridiron Network. Check out our great stable of shows, including G'day Gridiron. They're here midweek and on Saturdays. The midweek one, they react to the prior week's games and they take fan reactions, but they also previewed the game that we saw today. They always do the Thursday night preview game that's on a Friday here in Oz, and very important to support them too, because these are Aussie guys creating American football content for Aussies, and they talk like we talk. They approach it the way we approach the attitude that we take to sports, and they're great guys. That is Ian, Brad, Nick, and Isaac on that show. You also catch them on a weekend too, previewing 4 of the games on the Sunday slate that they think are must-watch, plus the Monday Night Football game as well, which we know is going to be 49ers and Carolina. It should be a good game. Go and check that out. The guys do a terrific job. We also had Isaac come through on our show, the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show, where Taylor and I got to run Isaac through. He did 4 shows this week, that poor bastard, but he got to come through and do Tipping Point and do some breakouts with us on the Friday. He is back on the weekend to do some mailbag and do starts of the week for World, who are trailing, but after a nice win in the starts of the week by our World candidate last week, Josh, Isaac's got a little bit of momentum, and goodness me, World need it as they trail in that, trying to chase Taylor, who's currently in first place for starts of the week glory. In the meantime, our SuperCoach Halfa League is still running all season long. If you haven't joined, join it. If you've got mates who are playing SuperCoach and they haven't joined it, join it. 962235 is our league code. Of course, you can win free stuff, and that code is here in the show notes where you found this podcast. Also, just make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss a podcast from any of us on the network. We'll see you next week. My name's Matty C. Hooroo, SuperCoaches.
SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. NFL